Hello, welcome back to the channel. It is Dan, Nocturne Knives. Today I'm coming at you with a sharpening video. So we're going to be talking about the two biggest sharpening mistakes that you might be making. This is going to be talking about the things that are really holding you back from getting that maximum sharpness and the best edge possible. Before we get into it, don't forget to go down and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you like sharpening content, knives, all that kind of stuff. I would really appreciate it. Check out my previous video right up there in the top right corner. And with that said, let's get into it. So this is a knife that I have in for a customer. It's a Benchmade Griptilian. I'm going to be sharpening it today, and I'll use it to illustrate some of those mistakes that you might be making. The two biggest and most common errors that I've seen other people making from browsing forums and talking to people and all sorts, and seeing knives that have been badly sharpened. These are the two most common errors that I see. So the first one is you're not forming a burr, you're not apexing the edge. We'll talk about that. And then the second one is you're not removing that burr. So you're not removing that little wire edge in your finishing of the sharpening, and that's holding back your edge. It's going to make your edge go dull quickly, and it's going to lower the maximum sharpness that you can achieve. So I'm going to be talking about how to identify these two issues and then how to correct the issues. So with that said, let's get into it. So problem number one is going to be you didn't form a burr. You didn't apex the edge. And as a refresher, I have a video all about burrs that goes into more detail about this. But apexing an edge means that you connect the two sides of the bevel. Instead of two separate bevels, they connect at the top. And that's the apex of the edge. So apexing means to connect the two bevels. And when you do that, you'll create a burr, which is a little wire edge that folds over to the opposite side from the one you're sharpening on. So this is the first mistake you're making, is you're not fully apexing that edge. And you can identify this by using the Sharpie trick. So you take your Sharpie and you color the entire edge bevel all the way down. You can see the edge bevel is now totally black. And then we'll throw this on some stones and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, we've got our stone, and now I'm going to start the sharpening of this, and I want to drop it down maybe a degree or two. I want to drop the edge angle. It's probably at 18 or 19 right now. I want to drop it back to 16, 17, something like that. So I'm going to take my first stroke, and here you go. You can see where I'm removing that Sharpie. I'm not quite down to the entire edge bevel. So in this microscope footage here, you can see how the new bevel I've started is at a shallower angle than the old one, and I haven't fully reached the end of the bevel with the new grind that I've started. You can see that bit of old bevel that's remaining. It's got the deeper scratches. It's farther out on the edge, and that's what's actually at the apex. So I have not apexed this. I need to go back and remove more material. So that's what I'll do here. And then the next shot here, you can see on the microscope, is a fully apexed section of the edge. You can see I've removed material all the way down the bevel. And I can see that because I've removed all my Sharpie, and I can see this new scratch pattern that's really consistent across the entire bevel. So using the Sharpie trick like that is one way to identify that you haven't reached the apex of the edge. Other issues you might be facing in forming your burr are you might need to move on to a coarser stone, because it could be you have a lot of material to remove to actually get those edges to meet, and you might need a coarser stone to efficiently remove that material. If you're on like 1,000 grit stone, but you have a bunch of material to remove, it's going to take a long time. You could get frustrated. You'll be checking for the burr all the time, and you won't be getting it. Move to a coarser stone, 500, 320, 220, something like that, so you can remove that material faster and form the burr more easily. Another problem you might be having is your angle is inconsistent, so you're coming at the stone at a different angle every time, or you're rocking or twisting, and you're just not getting enough contact on your flat bevel to actually apex the edge. You're working at the shoulder here of the bevel, or you're working, at all these different angles, and you're not actually getting enough work on the flat bevel to create a burr. So getting your angles more consistent might help you in doing this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep working each side of the bevel. I know I'm at the right angle. I'm hitting my entire bevel. Now I keep working each side, switching at regular intervals until I have formed a consistent burr that I can feel easily with my fingers. And remember, this burr, it's a little wire edge that folds over opposite of the side you're working. So if I'm sharpening on this side, I'll feel the burr right here. And I want to keep doing that, switching regularly until I can really feel a consistent burr. Then I flip, get it on the other side, and then I can move on to my next stone. Okay, I have formed a really nice, good, consistent burr. On this side, you'll see some microscope footage come up. And if you look just at the very edge, the very apex of the edge, the part that actually does the cutting, you'll see what looks like a little rolled bit of wire hanging off the edge. It looks kind of rough. It's got a few paper towel fiber strands on it. That's the burr. That's what you're looking for, and that's what you can feel. You can really feel it. Now, as I run my finger down here, I can feel it catching on my finger pad. And that's what you want to do. You want to form a burr that you can really feel catching, and you'll feel the difference. This side is smooth, no catch. This side where the burr is wants to grab at my finger. And that's what you want to form, a burr you can really feel, so you know it's there, so you're sure it's there. Especially when you're starting out, you get that consistent burr that you can feel, so there are no questions in your mind whether or not you formed it. And I've got one on this side, and then I flipped it to this side, and that's how I know I'm fully apexed. I've got a burr that I can move from side to side, and it's nice and consistent. So now I move on to my next stone. This was a 320, and I'm going to move on to a 500 now and just do a little bit of work on this. So now my goal, I'm not worrying so much about the burr. My goal is the edge finish. I want to get rid of those 320 scratches and get it to a nice even 500 grit, and then I'm going to go to my finishing stone. I've got the edge finish now to a nice even 500. The scratch pattern is nice and consistent. I'll put up some microscope footage here. You can see even scratches going all the way down the bevel. They're all in a consistent direction. So I've got a good consistent 500 finish. And now I can move on to my next stone. In this case, we're going to be finishing on a Veneve F400. This is going to be a working edge, so I wanted to have a little bit of tooth, a bit of bite on it. So now here on this finishing stone, I'm really not worrying about a burr. I know my angle, I know I can get it consistently, so I don't need to worry about a burr, forming a burr, feeling that or anything. If you are struggling with holding your angle, you're not sure you're getting it right, feel free to form a burr here on your finishing stone. It might be hard depending on the stone. 1,000 grit, you can form an easily feelable burr. 1200, you can form a pretty good burr. Maybe 1500, I would say, is the limit of what you can form a really apparent burr on. So if you're finishing higher than that, I would rely on looking at your scratch pattern. Get some magnification. You can get one of these little jeweler's loops, which will help you see magnification. You can tell what your scratch pattern is doing. Use your Sharpie to tell where you're moving material. But over 1500, don't rely on being able to feel a burr. That's 1000 grit, sure, you can form a decent feelable burr. Above that, you will struggle to. You'll spend all your time forming a burr and trying to find that. So what I'm going to do now is get a nice consistent F400 finish, and then we'll talk about deburring. Okay, we've got a nice consistent finish here on our 400. All the 500 scratches are removed, and just to make sure this is clear, the 500 Shapton is more coarse than this Veneve F400. The grit scale is different. So this F400 is like 800 grit, 800 grit, something like that. So it is actually a finer finish than the Shapton 500 because the grit scale that they're using to measure is different. And you can see, I'll throw up some microscope footage here and you can see the edge finish. So at this point, I haven't done any deburring on this, and I want to show you the edge before I deburr it. So this is the point we've come to, the second most common point for people to make errors, is you formed your burr, you've apexed the edge, but you haven't properly deburred the edge. So one way to check is just to feel for a burr, and I can actually feel a very small burr, although someone with less experience might not feel this because it's very small, it's very subtle, but you can just feel the difference. It's over here, you can just feel a drag, smooth drag. So it's very subtle, it's very small, but it will absolutely affect your sharpness and your edge. So I'll show you in this phone book paper. It doesn't want to bite in. Not biting into the paper. It will go in a little bit, but it just wants to drag. So I can get it to cut barely, just barely. But it really drags through the edge. And you can hear it dragging. And as soon as you put this edge to any work, say you hit some cardboard, that burr is going to crumble and you'll be left with a flat apex. Because the sharpness here was just coming from your burr. And as soon as that crumbles, your apex is going to be flat and your knife will be dull. So if you've ever experienced a knife that you just sharpened and it felt sharp, that can happen a lot. The burr will go from side to side and it'll end up straight in line with the edge, and you won't be able to feel it because you won't feel the drag on either side. It'll be lined up with the edge. But as soon as you go to cut into something, that burr crumbles. If you've ever experienced, you just sharpen your knife, but as soon as you start using it, it goes dull. That's because you didn't remove the burr. There was burr left over. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to go same angle I sharpened at, and I'm going to do edge leading strokes. I'm going to switch sides. I'm just going to do 2 per side. And 2, switch sides. 2. All right, I'm going to do one more. Of 2 edge leading strokes. And that you want to do these edge leading because that will knock the burr off. Instead of aligning it, it'll help to knock it off. So there are my edge leading strokes. I did 3 sets of 2. Now I'm going to do some single edge leading strokes I'll do 2 of these per side. And this is just going to help to minimize our burr, knock it off as much as possible. And you're using really light pressure here. Like just the weight of the blade. Because we want to knock the burr off without forming a new burr. So now that I've finished with now that I've done my edge leading, I'm going to do edge trailing. Going to do just 1 stroke per side, really light pressure. And this is going to help restore the apex. So with those edge leading strokes, I took off the burr, but in ripping off the burr, it will have damaged the apex on a microscopic level. So I do these edge trailing strokes to repair that apex. And when you do it with really light pressure, you won't form a new burr. You'll just refine the apex. No real burr formation. So I'm going to do a series of those. I'll do 1 more each side. And specific numbers don't really matter. Find something that works for you. I usually do like 3 to 5 edge leading sets, then a couple singles, and then maybe 5 edge trailing strokes per side. All right, now I can feel the sharpness has come up a lot. Now we'll try the paper, and see, that's much better. It actually wants to bite into the paper. You can see it's good. It's still not biting in super easily. I have to kind of work at it. It still feels a little rough. So that tells me I have a little micro burr left. Just a little bit straggling on. So now I'm done with the stone, and we're going to move on to a strop. Take some alcohol and get that really cleaned off. I don't want to contaminate my strop with any of that grit from the stone. Let me clean this up really quick. Okay, we got our knife, we got our strop. This is leather on wood. I sell these. You can check on my website for these. And now, got my knife. I'm going to just lightly strop it. Very lightly, because I want this edge to have a lot of bite, a lot of aggression, so I don't want to fully smooth it. This is 4 micron on here. And you can go right-hand corner, take a look at my video. I have a video all about stropping, and I'll tell you everything you need to know. All right, I've just done a few passes. Let's see what it feels like. So this is my last step on the edge, is get a strop, and that's going to help you clean up any leftover micro burr. It's going to help if you have any slight imperfections on your apex. Okay, we're definitely better, especially through this section. I need a little bit more up near the tip and on the belly. So I'm just going to do a little bit more up there. Okay. And that's what I'm talking about. You can see it bites in easily every time. It's smooth through the paper. You don't hear it catching. Easily slicing through this phone book paper. And you don't need to use phone book paper. You can use printer paper. Magazine paper works really well. Whatever. Paper towel is good. I'll get a paper towel. So this is actually a great way to check your edge. If you have a burr on your edge, it will absolutely catch in the paper towel. So there is your video. I think that's everything I wanted to say. To reiterate or move into our conclusions, Your two most common errors: not forming a burr and then not fully removing that burr. If your edge isn't getting sharp, it's almost certainly one of those two issues that's preventing you from getting that sharp edge that you want. Remember, sharpening is making these two planes meet at the most refined apex possible, the sharpest apex possible. If you have a burr, you're not getting sharp. If you haven't actually made those two edge bevels meet, you're not going to be sharp. It'll just be flat with two separate bevels. So you have to get those to meet, and then you have to clean up the burr that's formed. And that's how you'll get a sharp edge. So correcting these two most common errors, it's going to really help you in getting a sharper knife and a longer lasting edge. Because if you have that burr on there, you go to cut something and it'll fold off. The burr will crumble, fold, or break off, and you'll have a dull apex again immediately within 1 or 2 pieces of cardboard. You'll be going dull. Again, if you have any questions, don't forget to check out my video. I made a video all about burrs, which it goes into a little more detail. You'll find that link down in the description. Check out my sharpening series up there, top right, for a full comprehensive guide to freehand sharpening spread across a few different videos. And then strop link in the description for my website where I have these. I have strops and diamond compound. Definitely my favorite way to finish an edge. I think it's the best way to boost your sharpness, and also the best way to maintain an edge. So I hope you found the video interesting. I hope it helped you out. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. Have you struggled with forming a burr, removing the burr in the past? I would love to know. Maybe I can help you out with that. If you have any questions, drop them down below. And that's all I got. And I will catch you on the next one.